The topic of the moment is appraisals. What's the value of appraisal? Is it a positive or a negative in this current market? People are coming in from out of state. There's not enough houses, and yet most loans need appraisals. So please give me an overview, Roger. What are appraisals and what's the plus and minus?
Absolutely. From a real estate side, from a realtor side, I would say appraisals are obviously a very, very big thing. So first, let's go into the fact that you don't need an appraisal, and the contract in Arizona actually waives your right to an appraisal if you are buying cash. So therefore, if you are buying cash, you're coming from out of state, you sold your beautiful home there, you're buying a beautiful home here for a lot less money, relocating to Arizona, and you do want an appraisal still, you'll just need to make sure that your realtor writes that into a contract, or at least tell your realtor so they can make sure to represent you the way that you deserve to be represented. Okay. Now, in the other case, which is most people's situation, you'll be getting a loan. And there are situations where the lender will waive the appraisal with a large down payment. 20% doesn't always get you there. Sometimes certain lenders will be able to talk to the bank that they're getting the money from, okay, and get that waived with a 20% down. However, the more you put down, the more likely you are to get that appraisal waiver up front. Okay. So we won't even have to worry about the value. That would happen if the bank thinks whatever you're purchasing the home from in their system, yep, it makes sense. They don't need to check the value. You're buying a good deal.
Okay. So why would you skip an appraisal? What's the advantage?
Historically, we haven't seen this very much. And currently in this market, people are waiving their right to an appraisal contingency. Doesn't mean that the appraisal won't happen. The bank still needs the appraisal unless they decide to waive it, which the buyer doesn't have a choice of. Right. However, to make their offer stronger when we are going up against 5, 10, 15 other offers on a beautiful home that's really sought after, the buyer is doing things like shortening their inspection period. They're also waiving their right to back out of the appraisal, or excuse me, back out of the deal if the appraisal doesn't come in at value. Okay. Now, we mentioned this, I think, on the last video. So essentially what that means is, as a buyer, you have the right to back out if the home doesn't appraise to what the purchase price is and the seller does not bring down the price. Gotcha. The buyers currently are waiving that right, saying, I will pay the difference, the gap between what the appraised value is, okay, and then what we actually agreed upon. Okay. However, sometimes buyers are really smart to make sure that they don't pay too much, and they'll say, I'll pay $10,000 over a low appraisal, however, no more than the purchase price. So if it came in $5,000 low, they're only paying that difference in the gap. However, if it came in $20,000 low, they're only paying $10,000 above. And if the seller doesn't want to drop it down to that, the buyer can get out of the contract, get out of the offer, and move forward.
Feel that the deal's not that good at that point for them.
I mean, and the only thing you would be out in that situation is your appraisal cost, which is $500 to $600, and then if you chose to do a home inspection to make sure the house was sound.
Okay. How does this market of escalating prices and limited supply, how is that affecting how appraisals are done or how they come out?
Oh, I love that you asked that question. So I've been really picking the brain of a lot of different appraisers right now, because they're actually being told to do different things, right? They have a board, they have a almighty whoever to make sure that they're doing the right thing. In a lot of situations, the market's going up, 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 and the appraisers feel it's their job to govern that. So in this particular market, they are very, very clear that it is what it is. It's moving up quickly. Values are rising some months 12%, or more in certain areas. So they don't have the right to back that out, or to slow that down. So, a lot of people think the appraisers are working for the bank. Essentially they are. They're a third party though. They're not related to the bank. They're not related to the buyer or the seller. So they are actually calling, instead of looking at closed deals, that would be a comp. If you ever hear a realtor talk about comps, that's comparable homes that have closed. And that's where we get our values at. We all are very aware that the closed homes from last month or 3 months ago are not good comps like they normally would be, because the values are raising. So appraisers are calling current homes that are under contract, most likely $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 over the comps, and they're seeing what they're going for, using that as a comparable home, even though it hasn't closed yet. Okay. And then also doing a variance. So I've heard from a couple different appraisers, they're doing a 2%, a 5%, a 7%, depending on the area. They do a lot of different research on what areas are rising in price quicker or gaining value quicker, and they're using those numbers and they have their own equation. And we've been pleasantly surprised as buyers when we're offering $30,000, $40,000 over what we think the value is, and the buyer's willing to pay that gap, and then it comes in at value, or only comes in $2,000 or $3,000 less. I've had multiple situations over the last couple months.
Okay, so your experience is the appraisers are keeping up with what's happening in the market for the most part.
Fortunately, because that keeps the money from having to come out of the buyer's pocket.
Right.
So the bank's still loaning that money, and at these interest rates, you know, if you can get that money loaned versus pulling it out of your pocket, you're doing really good.
Right, right. All right, well, thanks for all the clarification, Roger.
Awesome.
Appreciate it.